Hello, my friend, and welcome to the study. On this dark December afternoon, shortly before the solstice, it's the last month of the year, and the last month of our 2025 Study Almanac. It certainly has been an interesting time together here in the study, as we've marked each month with a disc full of observances on nature, the world around us, various goings on, and gone to some interesting places, looked at some interesting history, and had some magical stories. So now, my friend, we will do our December Study Almanac, a disc, as we think back over the year and we prepare for a new one to begin. Look at all the places we've been together, right here in this study. Think of the places we'll go together, the things we'll see, the things we'll learn. This is a month and a season for thinking, for imagining, for resting. As we move through December, we have a magical stillness about the inside and the outside. We have frosts and fogs and mists, long cold nights. We gaze at the sky, and the heavens and the countryside both appear in shades of muted whites and pastels as the days grow shorter and shorter. All of the branches have lost their leaves except for the evergreens, which show us so many, many shades of greens and yellows and deep blue in the fading light of day. It's as if the whole world seems to be holding its breath, just waiting for midwinter's day when the astronomical winter begins in earnest. This is our time to retreat indoors, to our innermost selves, our innermost thoughts and spirits and feelings, our intuition. It is here that our imagination and intuition take precedence, and we can listen to them in the stillness and the quiet, learning from those vibes we feel. Winter solstice on the 21st will mark not only the shortest day in the Northern Hemisphere, out the hope of future light. For the sky this month, we will do our observances from Greenwich. Because the Earth orbits at an angle, it is tilted about 23.4 degrees on its axis. The apparent position of the sun in the sky at noon will change throughout the year. In December, it is lower and its time over the horizon is shorter. This winter solstice or December solstice will occur at the point when the Earth's tilt away from the sun is at its maximum, and the sun is lowest in the sky. This is the shortest day and the longest night of the year, and it is when the astronomical winter begins. The actual moment of the solstice this year will occur at 15:03 Greenwich Mean Time in Greenwich. The shortest day lasts 7 hours, 49 minutes and 42 seconds in Greenwich. The length of the day during the winter solstice is a full 8 hours, 49 minutes shorter than the summer solstice. Our ancient ancestors marked these moments in time, the solar standstills, as it were, the solstices, in their monuments, and we can now go to Newgrange to have a look at one example that stands out for the winter solstice. We go to the Republic of Ireland and a site known as Newgrange. This dates from 3300 to about 3000 BC. This area in which it stands is known as the Bend of the Boyne, about 4 miles long, and is contained within a great curve of the River Boyne. During the Neolithic period, this landscape was chosen for a cemetery of megalithic graves known as passage graves, or tombs. There are 3 principal tombs. Here we see Newgrange, by far the largest, on high ground and overlooking the river. Newgrange is the best known and consists of a large mound of layered natural material, about 11 meters high and 91 meters in diameter, which is 300 feet. It is ringed by a curb of large stones, a number of them decorated with abstract carved art. The most impressive of these stones is that which marks the entrance to the tomb. A 19-meter-long passage of orthostats, which are large upright stones, many of them with carvings, gives access to the cruciform burial chamber. Here the actual burials and cremations, accompanied by bone pins, small stone pendants, and handmade round-bottomed pottery, were placed on stone basins within small recesses, the walls of which were decorated. the open space at the center of the chamber was presumably used for ritual. The chamber's roof is corbelled, with the supporting stones tipped in such a way that water percolating through the mound would be deflected away from the roof. The result is that the chamber remains dry 5,000 years after it was built. On the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, 21st of December, the sun shines through a small opening above the entrance to the passage and spectacularly illuminates the back wall of the burial chamber. Such astronomical alignments are quite commonly found among megalithic tombs. They also show us that this part of the year, the solstice in the winter, is associated with the connection of this world and the other world, the cycle of life and death, and the communication between worlds. The exterior of the tomb has a wall of quartz with interspersed small round granite stones. This wall is a suggested and very controversial reconstruction of how the front of the tomb may originally have appeared, based on the discovery during excavation of large amounts of tumbled quartz in front of the tomb's entrance. The decorated curbstone at the back of this great tumulus has a selection of classic motifs of Neolithic artists, including what has come to be known as Celtic spirals and diamond shapes. Staying in the sky, we can observe the planets and the stars. On the 7th of December, the Moon and Jupiter came to a close approach in the constellation of Gemini. This can be best observed low on the horizon just after moonrise in the northeast, but the two objects will remain in close proximity throughout the night, getting a little farther as the month progresses, both appearing very bright in the sky. With even a small telescope, 4 Galilean moons can be seen, as well as detailed views of the mountains and valleys along our own moon's terminator. From the Royal Observatory at Greenwich, we read that the best night for making general observations will be 20th of December, tonight, when the moon will be in its new phase. The sky will be at its darkest, as there will be no sunlight reflecting off the moon, allowing a view of fainter objects that might have been drowned out by the light. Jupiter will be the only planet in the sky still in the constellation of Gemini. This is also a good night to view deep space objects with a telescope, such as the Beehive Cluster, the Orion Nebula, and the Andromeda Galaxy. Moving now to the forest and field for our December Almanac, we note that holly, ivy, and mistletoe are still green among all of the evergreens that have not lost their leaves and still give us color through the bleak winter months. Activity is still out there. In fact, fox mating season begins this month. So, on a cold, dark night, not only will you hear owls marking territory and hunting, but foxes looking for mates, planning their families for the new year. Our birds are also very active, and we also have new visitors for winter. On a cold night, a bird can use up to 10% of its body weight, so high-fat foods are essential for their survival through the winter, making the berries from the holly and mistletoe and all of the little bushes in the hedgerows tasty treats. Near the water and in it we have the goldeneye. You might spot this drake goldeneye swimming in reservoirs and lakes on frosty December days, lit by the low raking sun. This is the best time to view this beautiful little water bird with crisp black and white plumage, resplendent with its glowing yellow eye like a piece of amber in the dim light. The female goldeneyes are just as beautiful and have the same fiery glare, though their heads are a dark chocolate brown. Also in Britain is the Brent goose, because Britain is the winter destination for this little Arctic water bird. Two forms of this goose can be spotted here: dark-bellied geese in the salt marshes and harbours of the Channel coast, Thames estuary, and North Norfolk, and pale-bellied geese in Northern Ireland. These geese come to feed in the lush eelgrass in the shallows. Also visiting from further north, the snow bunting. High up in the mountains of Scotland, a small, bright white little bird. He hops across the glistening snow with his coat of white, though it has black wing panels and a tail to camouflage it against the rugged, rocky terrain. Here on the snow-capped tops in the Arctic regions, it raises its chicks in the shelter of rocky nooks and crags. In winter, snow buntings come south and can be seen all around Britain, scurrying around the sand dunes on the coast. These snow buntings arrive on the beaches in autumn, swapping their snowsuits for buff-brown details, which helps them to go unnoticed as they forage in the sand and shingle along the coast. In December they can be seen in large flocks through the cold months, especially on the east coast. At the feeder, we have any number of small birds, including the greenfinch, an attractive, chubby little finch, great spotted woodpeckers, nuthatches, and even ring-necked parakeets. We have also some long-tailed little ones. Two kinds of wagtail can be spotted now, pied wagtails and grey wagtails, both coming inland towards more urban areas in the winter. Also, we have the long-tailed tit, one of Britain's most remarkable winter wildlife spectacles, that nest and nestle together with their families on branches deep inside thickets to keep warm by night. But by day, these family parties are much more active, calling out to each other. Higher in the sky we see red kites, extinct in England in 1871, and in Scotland 8 years later. The red kite, however, remained in Wales. But after reintroduction schemes, this raptor is now one of the more widely seen species around Britain, with its distinctive call and beautiful flying capabilities. They have not stopped to rest for December. They too are flying around looking for food. You might see these swooping high over the woods and fields on cold winter days. Kites, buzzards, ravens, and crows, all keeping a lookout and looking their best in the low winter light against the pastel of the sky and the washed-out colors of field and forest. Perhaps our most widely known winter friend is robin, pictured among snow-dusted holly berries or on a garden spade or chair, fluffed up against the cold or nesting in a discarded rusty little teapot or battered boot. Robin enjoys iconic status in British popular culture, especially at Christmas, when this perky little member of the chat family holds a special place in our affections. A robin's lifespan is just 13 months on average due to high mortality in their first year. Once they've passed that barrier, they stand a much better chance of surviving for quite a while. Robins eat a wide variety of food, including worms, seeds, nuts, suet, invertebrates, and fruit. They'll readily come to garden bird tables and feeders, eating a combination of suet, mealworms, and seeds. If the weather's mild, they can breed as early as January, though it's more usual in March. Robins, though, are prolific breeders, often producing between 3 and 5 broods a year, each clutch containing 4 or 5 eggs. These broods can overlap, with the male feeding the chicks of one clutch, while the female sits on the eggs of the next. This enables the population to bounce back readily from any overwinter population losses. Robin chicks hatch after being incubated for 13 days and fledge 14 days later. Robins are one of the first birds to start the dawn chorus and one of the last to stop singing at night, even in winter when they sing to defend their winter territories. They're often mistaken for nightingales, and they're one of the most common nighttime singers in Britain, one of the causes being urban light. The robin became Britain's bird of Christmas, largely because of Victorian postmen. These postmen used to wear red tunics and were known as robin redbreasts. Robins began to appear on Christmas cards and other festive little letters and missives as a symbol of the red-breasted messenger. What better little bird with which to adorn our disc for December? Our animals this month are still active include the red squirrel. Britain and Ireland's native red squirrels are now at their most photogenic. Their ear tufts become longer and even more extravagantly fluffy in winter after the autumn molt. Despite their name, the squirrel's coat color may vary a great deal, from brick red to dark brown, often with blonde highlights in the ears or tail. A larger mammal, the polecat, is an exceptionally elusive nocturnal predator and remains one of the hardest of all British mammals to see. Like its domesticated ferret relatives, the polecat is a hunter of small mammals, and at this time of year it favors rats who make their homes near farms or urban areas. The brown hare will also be seen in fields and along the edge of woodlands. Long before brown hares were brought to the British Isles, most likely by the Romans, they lived in the vast grasslands of easternmost Europe and Central Asia. As steppe animals, They evolved to survive extremes of weather with little or no shelter. This explains their remarkable hardiness, for hares do not use burrows, but shallow scarps called forms. In winter they find their food by scrabbling snow aside, or, if necessary, resort to browsing shrubs, twigs, and even bark. Even smaller is the stoat. In its all-white winter coat, the stoat is called the ermine, and is perhaps Britain's most attractive mammal, but also the symbol for Brittany across the Channel. Various factors control the whitening, including each individual's heredity, falling temperatures, and snow cover. Severe weather conditions one year increase the likelihood of a change the next winter. As we bring evergreens into the house to brighten our inside and smell the beautiful scent of the needles and pines, we look to our evergreen here in Britain, the native yew. In Britain, the royal family, and especially Queen Charlotte, the wife of George III, helped to popularize this Germanic tradition of bringing evergreens indoors to decorate at Christmas. It's less well known that the custom originally involved a yew tree, or just a solitary yew branch. Yew was used both in the British Isles, where it is one of the only 3 native conifers, and in Germany, home to a much wider range of species. Yews have a rich and ancient relationship with the people of the British Isles, long predating the Christmas festival. In pre-Christian times, yews were associated with death rituals and important spiritual sites. So, while many of the oldest yews survive in churchyards, these wonderful, gnarly specimens were already old when the church's foundations were laid. In winter, they produce red berries, making beautiful palette in the winter outdoor world. However, these berries are very sticky and almost impossible to remove if squashed. Continuing with Victorian England, we now go to the Isle of Wight, Victoria and Albert's place of relaxation. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert bought the Osborne estate on the Isle of Wight in 1845. Here they built a new private home as an escape from bustling court life in London and Windsor. Its Italianate design became known as the Osborne style and was imitated throughout the British Empire. The rooms are filled with furniture and works of art that mirror the couple's personal tastes. The planting in the grounds is to Albert's designs. The most private rooms can be visited, including the nursery and Queen Victoria's bedroom, where she died. Queen Victoria used Osborne for more than 50 years and entertained visiting ministers, foreign royalty, and her own very extensive family here on the Isle of Wight, overlooking the Solent. Members of the household who were especially influential were the Queen's Highland servant John Brown, who came here from Balmoral in 1864, Henry Ponsonby, her private secretary from 1870 to 95, and Abdul Karim, her Indian secretary during the 1880s. After Prince Albert's death in 1861, Queen Victoria found solace at Osborne. Osborne was built as a family home by the sea rather than a palace, and the pavilion at the heart of the house is an embodiment of Victorian family values. Lived in for only 55 years, the house is a unique evocation of the private tastes and ambitions of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, and a vivid and touching recreation of royal daily life at both domestic and court level. Throughout the house, personal possessions and elements can be seen, works of art, many given to Victoria and Albert, some commissioned, but also many personal things like portraits of favourite pets, mainly dogs, or sculptures of dogs as well. The steps up to the household wing are flanked by copies of the Caledonian boar on the left and the dog of Alcibiades on the right. The dog is an original cement copy by the London artificial stone manufacturer Austin and Steely. The Queen also had a council room where the Privy Council of Ministers met several times a year. And in this room, in June 1857, the Queen gave Albert the title Prince Consort. It is the most elaborately decorated room at Osborne. It is also in this room that on 14th of January 1878, Alexander Graham Bell demonstrated his telephone, which had been patented for less than 2 years. The dining, drawing, and billiard rooms are the main reception rooms in the pavilion. They are all richly decorated, and each has an elaborate ceiling painted in 1857 to designs by Gruner and restored by English Heritage. Carpeted stairs lead from the table deckers' rooms to the dining room. Food and plates were brought up directly and laid out on the large mahogany sideboard. This and the 4 side tables have lion monopedia legs and were designed by Henry Whittaker in about 1847. In the 1850s, dinner was served promptly at 8 p.m. Towards the end of the century, it shifted to 8:45 p.m., but it was often 9:15 before the Queen arrived and the company could finally sit down to eat. One of the dining tables is laid for dinner in progress, and we can see the set square and ruler used by the table deckers to ensure that each setting was perfect. Family portraits always hung in this room, and the largest above the sideboard is a copy of the Victorian family by Franz Xaver Winterhalter, here hung on Victoria's birthday in 1849. The drawing room is most handsome of all, with its yellow damask satin curtains and furniture to match. Albert's notes show us that he had a hand in arranging the furniture, and especially the piano. This room also contains some idealized statues of Victoria's children, carved by Mary Thornycroft from 1845 to 1860, as well as some family portraits and landscapes. Visiting foreign royalty were received in the drawing room, and the Queen generally retired here after dinner to play cards or to sing and play at the Erard piano with members of the household. Both the piano and the 6 cabinets surrounding the bookcases are decorated with porcelain plaques painted by Carl Schmidt, showing miniature copies of Italian Old Master paintings. Celebrated musicians also gave recitals here, including soprano Jenny Lind, known as the Swedish Nightingale. This room also has the electric chandeliers, which were implemented in the 1890s. The nursery, beautiful rooms overlooking the Solent is a suite that gives insight into Queen Victoria and Prince Albert's relations with their young family. It was a large family and must have been a very busy one, with so many children. It was sited immediately above the couple's private apartments to allow them easy access to the children, who normally remained there until the age of 6. Queen Victoria's sitting room sits with her desk and Prince Albert's desk side by side, beneath a large ormolu gilt brass lamp made to burn a viscous colza, vegetable oil, gravity-fed from the raised reservoir. Queen Victoria's dressing room contains a bath, which, following contemporary propriety, looks like a wardrobe, with full-length mirrors when not in use. Next to it, a shower, equally well disguised. In the narrow passage to the left is the Queen's lavatory. Access to it from her bedroom was cleverly disguised to look like part of a large mahogany wardrobe. From 1848 until Albert's death, Victoria was nearly always at Osborne for her birthday on 24th of May. The day started at 7 a.m. with a band playing below her bedroom window. Often the tune was one of Albert's hymns. After dressing in her new summer frock and giving Albert 1 or 2 presents, the Queen was greeted at the foot of the stairs by her children carrying nosegays. As in her childhood, a birthday table was set out in a room decorated with flowers, and in 1848 and 49 the horn room was used, but by the 1850s a spare bedroom in the main wing was established as the present room. Breakfast followed in the dining room, sometimes with the band still playing on the terrace. The day often concluded after dinner with dancing in the council room. Albert, too, was almost invariably at Osborne for his birthday on 26th of August. In 1851, the children sang outside his dressing room before taking him to the present room. There followed a French play acted by the 5 eldest children, and as a treat, the 4 eldest sat with their parents at the dinner table that evening for the first time. Throughout the 19th century, a rustic fete was held for the estate workers in honor of Albert's birthday, including a band, games such as sack races, climbing a greasy pole for a leg of mutton, and bobbing for oranges, and dinner in a marquee. Gruner helped to design and lay out the Italian terraces at the head of the valley with Prince Albert and Cubitt. Massive earth-moving was needed, and the valley was remodeled to create the sweeping fall to the coast. Some of the terrace walls rise up to 25 feet. The statue of Andromeda by John Bell at the center of the fountain on the lower terrace is beautiful to look at from the top of Osborne House out towards the Solent. Bell has depicted the mythological Andromeda in chains awaiting rescue by Perseus, her future husband. The horseshoe steps at the far end of the upper terrace lead down to a further lower terrace, opposite the former orangery, and Victoria Hall. The lower terrace contains a triple-arched alcove, flanked by steps, and the shell alcove nearby has a canal coal bench with dolphin supports, and is decorated with shells from the beach. Victoria records a delightful observation in August 1852 of workmen fixing shells to the roof while a charming magpie was taking all the shells. The wooded valley walk leads down from the Broad Walk to Osborne Beach, a private landing place which was one of the main attractions of Osborne to the royal couple. A private landing place was one of the main attractions of Osborne to the royal couple, The wooded valley walk leads down from the broad walk to Osborne Beach, where the boathouse and the landing can be seen. In 1855, they added a landing house and a 250-metre jetty. The beach was much loved by the royal children. Here they collected shells or dug in the sand with their governess, Lady Littleton. A tent was pitched each year on the shore to give them shelter, and the alcove seat, decorated with blue Minton tiles, was built in 1869. Victoria often sat here to sketch or to write. This is now a very nice mooring spot on the Solent. Although not allowed to land, you can see all of the activity on the beach. And during the summer, there are performances of Punch and Judy in a puppet theatre. Prince Albert was a firm believer in the benefits of sea bathing, and the nearby beach was significant in his choice of Osborne. Beyond the alcove seat are the remains of the stone rails down which the Queen's bathing machine ran into the sea from a covered recess which housed it and the floating bath when not in use. The children learnt to swim in a floating bath, apparently devised by Albert, and built in 1854 by John and Robert White of Cowes. A wood grating held between two pontoons was raised or lowered according to the height of the swimmer. Because of the 4-metre tidal range, it was moored 60 metres out to sea and reached by a small boat manned by a pair of sailors from the royal yacht. Albert frequently took the older princes for a daily swim, while some of the princesses were taught by Eugène Lobby, a young woman from Boulogne. The royal family took such delight in this seaside home, and each year spent more time as possible here and at Balmoral. Victoria spent a record total of 123 days at Osborne in 1848, when building and planting activity was at its height. The family, accompanied by the court, established a regular pattern of visits by 1850, generally including 4 main periods at Osborne: March, May, part of July, and August, and from late November to just before Christmas, when they left for Windsor. Hot summer days and the Queen's liking for fresh air encouraged a routine which included breakfasting outside as often as possible. Both the Queen and Prince enjoyed walking and riding in the park, and it was rare for them to stay indoors all day. Victoria references in her journal reading and writing under the trees or in a small tent, taking tea in the summer house or with the children at the Swiss cottage, and Albert planting or visiting Barton Farm. The couple also hosted many royal events and visits at Osborne. Most were relations in some form, so they were largely family affairs. Of the remainder, the most successful visit was that of Emperor and Empress of France, Napoleon III and Eugénie, in August 1857, which was informal to a degree that would have been impossible in London or Windsor. But in diplomatic terms it helped to cement the alliance between the two countries following the Crimean War. Personally, the Queen was particularly captivated by the Empress, and they remained close friends thereafter. The atmosphere of being a family home is still tangible here at Osborne. The relatively relaxed atmosphere allowed Victoria and Albert to spend more time with their children than when in London or Windsor. During the day, the Queen would often hear them recite French or help them with their other lessons, and most evenings they would visit her in her sitting room, in rotation, starting with the youngest. Prince Albert delighted in being with his children, and the Queen's journal frequently refers to his activities with them, giving them a magic lantern show, showing them how to catch butterflies, flying kites, or demonstrating somersaults in the hay. Winter attractions included ice skating on the pond near Barton Farm, or helping the children to make snowmen. Vicky, the Princess Royal, was a precocious, talented child and her father's favourite. Prince Albert produced many sketches of her at play in the nursery, and she thrived under his rigorous educational regime. Unlike his sister, Bertie, the Prince of Wales, showed little aptitude for his studies, fell behind his younger siblings in his lessons, and developed a stammer and a temper. His relationship with his parents was difficult, but to his sister Alice he was particularly close. Alice was a peacemaker, and alone capable of persuading Bertie to partake in their childhood games. Alfred, called Alfie, was an adventurous child who left home to join the Royal Navy when he was only 14. Alfie was good with his hands, delighting in taking apart and reassembling mechanical objects. He made toys for the other children, and he built a working steam engine and a musical box that could play Rule Britannia. The next two children were Helena and Louise. They had quite different temperaments, and as they grew older, often quarreled. Helena, known as Ländchen, the German shortening for her name, was a tomboy, happiest mucking out the stables or digging her garden plot at the Swiss cottage. She was known to punch her brothers on the nose when teased. Understandably, she was closest to Afy, sharing his interest in boats and machinery. Louise was deemed by the Queen the prettiest of her daughters. She was strong-willed and talented painter, and went on to study at the National Art Training School in Kensington, and to have a sculpture studio at Osborne. Good, obedient Arthur was the Queen's favourite. He was destined for a career in the army, and on his first birthday announced, "Arthur is going to be a soldier." He could often be found dressed in his Grenadier Guards uniform, acting out battles with his toy soldiers at Victoria Fort. His brother Leopold was the Queen's child of anxiety, over whom she was fiercely protective. A mischievous child, but delicate, having inherited the disease hemophilia through his mother, any fall was liable to confine him to bed for days. It was after such a fall that he died when only 30 years old. The last of the 9 children was Beatrice, known affectionately as Baby. She had in many ways a sad and solitary childhood, growing up in the aftermath of Prince Albert's death. But she was more indulged than her siblings, and could be naughty. In the summer of 1862, she shut her governess in the barracks at Victoria Fort, and demanded that she bark like a dog to be released. The Swiss cottage was the children's favourite place at Osborne. Here they grew fruit and vegetables, played in the miniature fort, cooked and entertained their parents, and collected objects for their expanding museum. This was all part of Prince Albert's educational strategy, with its emphasis on purposeful play and activities that taught the value of hard work, self-reliance, and economy. The children revelled in this miniature world. After Albert's death, Victoria mourned greatly and began spending Christmases at Osborne. Even in the 1890s, she stayed at Osborne for 90 to 100 days each year, continuing the daily routine established for over 50 years. Some evenings were enlivened by lectures, recitals, or theatricals, which the Queen termed treats. In 1866, the pianist Halle stayed to play for the Queen. Others who performed at Osborne included Signor Tosti, Dame Clara Butt, and Dame Nellie Melba, and theatrical performances were given by Henry Irving and Ellen Terry. In her old age, Victoria remained alert, but her eyesight was failing, and Sir Henry Ponsonby, Her secretary was urged to write larger and use blacker ink. A combination of rheumatism and 2 bad falls meant she was often pushed in her rolling chair. By 1900 she was dozing during the day and failing to sleep at night. Her first diary entry for 1901 recorded, "Another year begun, and I'm feeling so weak that I enter upon it sadly." On 17th January 1901, the Queen suffered a slight stroke. Members of the family started to arrive at Osborne. And soon every bed was occupied. She was nursed in her bedroom, but on 22nd of January, surrounded by her family, which included the future Edward VII and Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, the 81-year-old Queen of Great Britain and Ireland and Empress of India died. The Duke of Argyll described the Queen's last moments as like a great 3-decker ship sinking. She kept on rallying and then sinking. The calm within the pavilion contrasted with the clamour outside the gates where reporters waited to telegraph the news across the world. The Queen is dead. It was the end of an era. Frederick Ponsonby described the dining room where the Queen lay in state, which was hung round with curtains and draperies. The coffin was covered with crimson velvet and ermine, with the crown in diamonds on a cushion, and the Order of the Garter, which the Queen had worn, on a raised platform covered by the royal standard. The room was lighted by 8 huge candles, and there were palms around the room in addition to the masses of wreaths. It was all gorgeous with colour and most impressive. The coffin was guarded by 4 men from the Queen's company, Grenadier Guards, in scarlet tunics, standing with reversed arms, 1 at each corner, plus a member of the household at the foot of the coffin. On the 1st of February, the coffin was draped with a white satin pall embroidered by the Royal School of Needlework, founded by Princess Helena, with a gold cross in the middle and the royal arms in the corners, was carried from the house by sailors from the royal yacht and placed on the gun carriage. The whole cortege moved slowly through East Cowes to Trinity Pier, where the coffin was placed on the royal yacht Alberta. The small yacht, accompanied by the Victoria and Albert and the Osborne, was dwarfed between the battleships and cruisers, anchored in 2 lines all the way to Portsmouth. So, my friends, we have our last disc of the year, and I've tried to make it a little festive to the best of my paltry ability here, but at least we've had fun together. I've made Osborne House a little bit decorative for Christmas. I've put our little friends, the hare, the ermine, and the robin there amongst the holly and ivy, underneath the moon and Jupiter, and our wonderful gas giant planets. So I hope you've enjoyed this last month in our Study Almanac, this time with me exploring the British countryside, British places in history, this month and every month this year. It's been quite a year, and you deserve a beautiful, beautiful end to it, and a wonderful new beginning for the next year. So I'll be seeing you next week in the study for our last study meeting of the year 2025, when we'll have a little bit of a look at what we might be doing in the study over the winter ahead. Don't forget, you're never alone when you wake up in the night, when the dark evenings start to drag, when you're feeling low, or when you just need a break. Study's always here for you. And so will I be too. So, be good to yourself, my friend. Have beautiful holidays, wherever and however you might. Be kind to others, and be extraordinary.